Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I will tell you how to make a very beautiful beach bag, which I prepared with spaghetti yarn of a famous brand, and I want to show you our model closely. We will prepare our bag only with the single needle technique, but we will make our bag with a completely different method. Look at the inside like this. First we will knit a rectangular flat piece. I shared with you in detail how I knitted this. Then we will knit two side bellows. Here, look, we will make a different stitch and join at the base. It was really beautiful. I don't know if the original bag was made this way, but I prepared the bag using the method that seemed easiest to me. I also enjoyed working very much. It only took me a day to finish this bag. The width of my bag was 50 centimeters and the length was 38 centimeters. You can find all the details in the video. It was truly a very nice project. I hope you like it and try it too. Before moving on to our detailed recipe, I would like to make a small request from you. You can subscribe to our channel for free. I would be really happy if you like the video and leave your comments. Let's move on to our recipe. I used spaghetti yarn, Raffia yarn for my bag. I used 3 black balls and 3 cream balls, making a total of 6 balls. As your yarn increases, you can also do 2 color mini beads, etc. with the remaining yarn. It is also worth mentioning that I would like to show you the properties of the rope. Its mixture is 100% paperweight. It is between 75 and 100 grams. It is 100 meters long. Look, the texture of the rope is like this. It is very easy to knit. It does not hurt the hand at all. It is also worth mentioning that I am putting my yarn aside. Look, we will knit and prepare 3 pieces for our bag. I want to show the first piece here. The first piece is the front and back. Look, we will prepare a long rectangular piece. We will do this by working single needle on the chain. We will prepare our bag with single needle technique only. Look, this long rectangular piece forms the front and back, then 2 pieces on the sides. Look, there's a trick here too. We will knit single needles only on the straight chain that forms the base. There's a trick here. I will be sharing with you in detail how we did this. Now we will prepare these 3 parts. I got my note. I would also like to show you the note I took in my notebook. Maybe some people want to take screenshots. Look at the drawing of this long rectangular piece. I drew it like this. I also wrote down the number of rows and their size in centimeters in detail. Maybe there may be people who want to take screenshots at this point. Look, the measurements etc. are written in detail. We will knit and prepare one of these rectangular pieces. We will complete the other side pieces by preparing 2 pieces each. Here I will be sharing with you the number of single needles and row numbers in centimeters as I knit again. I take my notebook aside. When I was working with Raffia yarn, my crochet number was 5 mm. Look. I worked with a 5 mm crochet hook. I never shook my hand either. I prepared my bag by knitting very easily. I advise you to knit this Raffia comfortably without damaging the yarn. Your hands don't hurt and you get a nice result. Let me show you this closely. Look, I didn't do any ironing or anything like that. Now, in order to explain it to you more easily, I will use spaghetti yarn with macrame yarn. The texture looks like this closely. My crochet number will be 4 millimeters. As I said, you can determine your crochet number according to your own yarn. Here, our knitting density and looseness are also very important. Here we come now. Here we make our first chain a lock. You can start by pulling as many chains as you want the size of your bag. You don't have to count chains. But first, let's prepare this rectangular piece. While preparing the piece, I started by drawing 81 chains. Now, since I will describe a small example here, after making my first chain, I prepare my starting chains to be a little looser than the setting I knitted. Look, I'm drawing my chains like this. Now, since we will describe it in a small example, I prepare our chains a little bit like this. Let's prepare. Now, that's enough. As I said, the length of this bag is 82 centimeters. The length of this front piece, the long rectangular piece from start to finish, is 82 centimeters. For this, I started with 80 single crochets by making 81 chains. Now let's say we prepared our 81 chains. Now we do not use the straight part of the chain. This place is important. We turn the reverse part. We leave the last chain we pulled and sink into the back cut line of the next chain. We made a loop. We knit single needle. We remove the loop by sinking into the back cut line of the next chain. We have 2 stitches and wrap them around. We knit single needle. We knit 1 single crochet in each chain and continue until the end of the row. It's pretty simple. At this stage, if you think I knitted too fast, you can slow down the video, or on the contrary, watch it by speeding it up. Now let's knit our single needles until the end of the row. Let's share with you how we make the return. We have come to the end. We sink into the last chain and knit our single needle. Since we are making chainless turns here, we lighten our stitch and turn the knitting music directly. And by sinking into the first space that comes up, we remove the stitch and start knitting single needle again. Look, now each single needle is stuck once in vain, and we will continue knitting single needle. As I said, it is a very easy model consisting entirely of single needle. Look at each point in this way. We will proceed by knitting single crochet until we come to the last point. Here, once again, where is the last point? How do we sink? How do we make the turn? Let's share with you immediately. Then we come to the last point. The point in the shape of a spike. We sink to this point and knit our single crochet. Again, we make turns without a chain. We lighten the stitch and turn our knitting directly. We start a new row by knitting single needles by sinking into the first space that comes up. Now here I started with the black color. Look, I prepared 80 single crochet stitches by knitting 4 rows in total. Now we will complete 4 rows here. I will share with you immediately how we knit the middle part after 4 rows and how I add the new color. Here I finished with 4 rows of pink. Look, I'm knitting my last single crochet. After knitting the last single crochet, I pull my chain like this, leave my thread a little long and cut it. Then I will hide these strings. Look, I completed my piece with 4 rows. We will continue the same way as we knit. I take my yarn of different colors and create a loop with a chain. I created the chain loop. Now look here, we will leave a certain row of single crochets. I left 10 single crochet stitches. Opposite each other, I left 10 single needles and continued knitting. See here, the new color came and I added my yarn. I left 10 single crochets here until there were 10 single crochets left in the last part. I started knitting the middle part, leaving 10 single needles at the beginning and end. Now look, we finished the straight part here. Let's assume we turned our knitting. We continue normal knitting. Now let's leave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at this point. Now I left 8. I'm sinking into 9th. Look, I left 10 here. I stitched and removed a stitch from the next single crochet stitch. I also put this rope in between to hide it. It has 2 stitches. Look, I'm knitting single crochet directly. Since we created a chain stitch, we start directly like this. Now I continue by knitting single crochet these middle parts. There are 60 single crochets here. 10 we left them on the edges. There were 80 single crochets. There are 60 single crochets left in the middle. Now look at this middle part. I'm knitting single crochets like this. Here again we will leave 8 single needles. I left 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Look, the last single needle here is again, we make the turns without a chain. We stretch the stitch and turn it, and we sink into the first single needle that comes up. Look, we knitted the single needles here, 3 rows with cream color and 4 rows with black. Look, we have enlarged our knitting by knitting 3 rows with cream again. Now I will knit a few rows here. This is how we start the new color. It's the same in other parts. For example, after pulling a chain and breaking the rope, we start the new row here by attaching our color from the same point where we first started. This is how we add new rows. I want to knit a few more rows here. Let's move on to the pink part here. Now we know the middle part. We knit it like this in classic single crochet. Let's finish. Look, we are making a chain here and finishing the knitting. Now we need to get the other color. First, see how we will leave the space of 8 single needles here. I'm immediately creating a chain loop. I'm pulling 1 or 2 chains here. After locking the first chain, I pulled 2 of my chains. Look, I'm leaving the second chain and sinking into the first chain. I've made a loop. I have 2 loops. I create a needle, then look at the bottom part, look at the line of the point where we took the first stitch and this line right behind it. I sink to this point. I removed a stitch. There are 2 stitches. I fill them. First I pass them through the first one, I wrap them, then I pass them through the second one. Look, we create the single needle points in this way. We knit to the chained point and we knit it. I insert the single needle into the other. Look, I insert the bottom part in the same way. I remove a stitch from here to both of them. I fill them. I pass them through the first stitch. I remove the stitch. There are 2 stitches. I fill them. I pass them through both of them, thus creating the single needle. Look right at the bottom of this single needle. There are 2 lines, one in front and one in the back. We sink into this line and remove a loop. First, we remove a loop from the first one. There are 2 stitches and we are filling them. Then we collect both of them at once and knit single needles. Look at this way, we are making our beginning. You can use this starting technique at first if you want. So here we made a chain and knitted single crochet. You can start this way by not doing this if you want. It's entirely up to your preference. Now look, we had 8 single needles. On the other side, I left 10 in the larger piece here. 8 in this little piece. Now we will create 8 single crochet stitches like this. Look, we created 2, 4, 5 of them. We create the single crochet point by dipping into the line on the front and the line on the back, removing the stitch and knitting the first needle and the 2 together. We create both the chained point and the single crochet point by removing the loops by sinking into the front and back lines at the bottom of the single needle and knitting both of them together with the first needle. Look, let's count. There are 2, 4, 6, 8. Now, after knitting the single crochet here, we have knitted this part. Look, we are coming here, purl here, purl here. Since we finished here, we have to start from here. After knitting 8 single crochets here, I come here. Look at the single crochet point here. I am sinking to this point in between. I am knitting this short rope by hiding it. I am working on a single crochet directly. See this? We left 8 single crochet points in this section. Then I continue knitting the single crochets. I also hide the sepals while knitting. Look at this section. I am knitting the single needles. Here, look, we created the single crochet point at the beginning, then this part will sit. It looks like it is floating a little bit, but this is no problem. It will sit now. After knitting the last single crochet here, look, I immediately sink into the bottom part. I sink into the last single crochet needle I inserted. I remove the stitch. I take 2 and 2 together, again the same way. Look, we knit a single crochet by removing a stitch from the point where we removed the stitch. And from here we knit in the same way. We complete the stitches by removing the stitches and knitting 8 single crochet stitches. If you want, you can use different methods if you know them. Or you can knit 80 single crochets directly on the chain and join them in the middle. For example, you knitted this part. While knitting this other piece, you can also assemble it by sewing on the gap. This will be no problem. Look, now there are 8 single needle. Let's do it as we have described to you here. 2, 4, 6, 7, and 8. After knitting the 8th single needle, we stretch the stitch, turn our knitting, and knit our single needle again by sinking into the first gap. The same process continues. Then knit 4 rows again as we did in the beginning. See, there is no difference. We knit on single needles. Look, in this part, we are knitting single needles again. By knitting 4 rows, we finish our piece in the same way as at the beginning. Here we will complete the 4 rows again. We knit as much on this side as we have knitted here, completing 4 rows, and thus we obtain a knitted rectangular knitted piece. I wanted to describe it briefly like this. Look, the finished version looks like this. This part is like this. Now, after finishing this, we move on to knitting the side bellows. I will immediately describe this side bellows to you. Look, the two pieces are knitted in the same way. Here we start with 34 chains in total. I will tell you how many rows I knitted in total by making 34 chains. We knitted 36 rows in total, but you will knit 33 rows from 36 rows. Look at the last 3 rows. There is a point we left to create the base. I want to show it right here in the notebook. Look at it. We started with 34 single crochets. Its width was 32 centimeters. Height is 41 centimeters. Again, the finished length of the rectangular piece is 82 centimeters. Its width was 21 centimeters. By the way, we have knitted 10 rows here. I want to show this part anyway so that we don't skip it. Look, we finished with 4 rows of black, 3 rows of cream, 4 rows of black again, 3 rows of cream, and 4 rows of black. This is how we finished this rectangular piece. The width of this was 21 centimeters, and the length of this rectangular piece was 82 centimeters. The length of the side bellows was 41 centimeters, and the width was 32 centimeters. Now look here, we will knit 34 single crochets in 33 rows. While knitting single needle, I want to show it like this. Here we started with 5 rows of cream and knitted 4 rows of black, 6 rows of cream, 4 rows of black, and 6 rows of cream. Then, after knitting 4 rows of black again, we knitted 4 rows of cream. After knitting 4 rows of cream, we have knitted 33 rows in total. Look, in the last 3 rows, we have created the space necessary to create this edge part. This is now the base point. Look at this. After knitting 4 rows of cream, we turned normally. We knitted 14 single needles. I don't think there is any need to show it here anymore. After knitting 14 rows of single crochet, we stretched the stitch and made our return. We knitted 14 single needles again. We turned again and knitted 14 single crochets, then pulled a chain and broke our thread. Look, we have knitted a piece in 3 rows here, then we skipped 6 spaces here. Look, we will continue here the same way we started here. When you leave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 single crochet spaces and leave 6 single crochet spaces in the middle on this side, you are left with 14 single crochet points on the edge as we left here. We repeated the same process we did here, leaving 6 single crochets. Look, we created a space here by knitting 14 single needles in 3 rows. Now I would like to tell you the dimensions of this space. That part, length 13 centimeters, his hand was 3.5 centimeters long. Let me say it as a put. Now look here, we will fold this part like this. Long 14 rows of single needles will come side by side. It will close in the remaining space like this. This will give us the base. Look, we will have created the base like this. You can actually use this in many bags. Now we will move on to assembling the pieces. We knit like this, only that middle part might be a little confusing. This is how I explained it to you in detail. Now we knit the 2 side pieces in the same way. Look, just as we knitted this, I completed the knitting I describe here by knitting exactly the same. In fact, in this last part, look, I knitted 14 rows of single needles. I didn't break my rope. Now I want us to sew it together here. Now I will draw a chain. I will leave a little bit to sew. I'm cutting from this chain. I'm removing our. If you want, you can combine it with the single needle technique. I want to join the edges first. After joining the base part, we can move on to joining the other part. Look, I am bringing the point with 14 rows of single needles side by side. From here, I will start sewing with the help of etamine needle. I take my injection of etamine. The thread I left behind. I wear it on my needle. Let's start sewing here now. Look, here we will sew the single needles facing each other. Let's tighten that chain. I'm sinking into the first single crochet point here. Then I sink into the first single crochet point here. This is how I will do my stitching. I will sew it with the help of this etamine needle. As I said, you can also use different joining techniques. By the way, this part of the bag will be the outer part. I will join it from the outside like this. See here. We looked at the single needle together. Now I'm going into the other single needle. The second single needle is here. I'm inserting this thread into the second single needle. See here. I made my stitch, then I inserted it into the other single needle space, and then I inserted it into the other single needle space on the opposite piece. I'm doing my sewing in this way. Now let's do our sewing until we get to this end part. After this end part, how do we make this middle part? How do we sew it? Let's share it with you right away. Look, we had 14 single needles here. We completed them by sewing them opposite each other. Now we have come to this end part. Now we have these 6 single needles in this end section. There was a point where we left the needle. Look, we are closing it like this. We will take these threads in last and walk around. Let's even put this rope on the inside, because we sewed it from the outside. Now I will make a reinforcement here. Look, after the last single needle is inserted into each other, I strengthen it. Look at this triangle-like knitting point here. There's space for 6 single stitches here. I keep it this way. I will close it evenly and sew it from the edge, so I use my sewing needle to reach the edge. I am careful not to change the shape of the knitting, see, at this point. I came to the tip here. Now I'm going to sink here as well. I'll make sure it's solid. Now I'm coming here again. Look at this part. I have strengthened this edge by sinking. Now I am sinking into the mutual spaces. I will connect these open 6 needle points by sewing this point to the end part. I'm sinking into the gap right here. I'm sinking into the single crochet point in between. Look, I'm not doing wrap stitches. I'm passing them through the gaps. I do not take the yarn out over the knitting. Like this. That's the middle part. Let's sew it. It is very easy to sew. I wanted to show these parts without cutting them so that there will be no problems in mind. I finish it this way. I strengthen. Since it has the best structure, the shelf rope can sometimes be attached. I don't want to give away the rope. I thread my rope carefully. We have done the stitching in this way. Then what am I doing with this rope here? I will not knot it at all. I've already hardened it. I will hide it in the bag by passing it through the gaps with the help of a needle. Look, walking the rope at the base. That's enough. I'm cutting the rope here. There is no need for extra knots, etc. I will apply the same process to the other piece with the remaining rope. Look, we created the side part like this. Look, this is how we got the base. You can prepare such a bag by knitting longer, holding this hand longer, making such a knitting work in 2 pieces, and finally joining the middle part. It is useful to share this. Now I will make this piece the same way. Then we will move on to placing the stems by joining the 2 pieces into this long rectangular piece. We sewed and completed the base of both pieces as we have described to you. Look, when it opens like this, we sew it like this. Now we will combine these 2 pieces with the long rectangular piece. I take my long piece, here I double the long piece. See, I'm holding it like this. I'm taking this piece too. I keep the first single needles of this piece facing each other, the first single needle of this side piece, the first single needle of the long rectangular piece with locators and hook pins like this. So actually I'm sweating, I'm closing it like this. Look for available spaces. We will perform the sewing process after sinking. I sink into suitable spaces like this. I'm attaching my safety pin. Now look here, we are going to attach our safety pins. Look, I want to show it like this in the base part. Likewise, there is no difference in this part. We will continue this process until the other end by fixing it all with safety pins and place markers. Then we will move on to the sewing process. See here, I did the sweating process. I attached my piece with safety pins. I want to show it like this. I sewed the other part and completed it. We started from the end here. We finished here by sewing completely from the bottom. Now I want the same situation here as well. Look, I combined it in black. If you want, you can also combine it with cream. Now before the point where the black color is, I will hide my rope like this. We do not tie knots. No need to tie knots. From among, first of all, pass the rope like this. I fix it. I carry the rope until I reach the point where I sew. Look, I'm taking this out of the way. What was the hook at the beginning? Let's take it out. Actually, we will do the same process as we sewed the other part. Here I sink right across. I sink to the first point and thread my rope. Then I'll come here once to solidify the memory. I'm sinking right to the side. The safety pins on the opposite side will show us where we should stand and how we should proceed. Look, by sinking into the appropriate spaces opposite each other, I tried to hide the black on the white point as much as I could because I didn't want it to be too obvious. We perform our stitching by sinking mutually. As we have sweated here, look, you see the side piece like this. It is a rectangular piece. In this way, we will sew up to this end part and complete it. Finally, we will move on to placing our stems. We finished the sewing part of our handles. Now we will place our stems. I have shared this handle with you before. I will add the link to the recipe in the description section below. You can access the video by clicking from there. You can watch how I make the stems. Now look at my black color again. I put it on my edamine needle. I'm taking one of the handles. I'm going to sew them by placing them on the inside. Look at our handle. There are gaps there. We will sew this black part in these gaps. First, I hide my rope enough and I need to fix it. Look at, after fixing it like this, I take my handle, let it stay in the inner part like this. Look, I will place this right at the end part. I will do it inside and out. I'm sinking through the hole right from this point. I got stuck again. I sink into my bag. I'm taking it out. Without changing the shape of the braid on the outside, look, I will dip it again at the intermediate point and remove it from the inside of the handle. This time I will sink from this side and look, I will have placed the handle in the bag without disturbing the knitting from that whole part of the handle. Let me show you this way. We will sew the handle in the same way. Let's say it is straight here. Look, I will have placed the handle in the other part by sewing the same way. Look at both handles. By sewing them to these ends, our bag is now finished. I will be sharing it with you. We finished our bag by sewing the handles. It was a really enjoyable production. I hope you like it and try it too. I wish good luck to those who will do it. Don't forget to like our video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye until we see you in the next video.